5-second YouTube intro. Hey, YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe. Here we go. Welcome to the Friday show, everybody. You know, last season, you could have drafted T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Justin Herbert, Antonio Brown, Melvin Gordon, and Michael Carter with a mid-round pick. But you also could have drafted Ronald Jones, Noah Fant, Robbie Anderson, Odell Beckham, and Trey Sermon with a mid-round pick. So let's make the right decisions in the middle rounds. Heath, are you ready to make good decisions today?
It sounds like you are telling me, and this is groundbreaking, that there are...
I do think it's groundbreaking. I
only presume with this type of intro, like you're setting us up for the research that you've done that tells us what is the difference. Like, how can we tell the difference between a good pick and a bad pick heading into the middle rounds?
You, sir, have overestimated me. I have done no such research. I'm simply pointing out there were a lot of hits and a lot of misses last year. Dave, are you ready to take a trip down memory lane?
I'm always down for a trip toward the past.
Okay.
Exciting past. This better be a good memory, though, because I'm in a good mood. Don't bring up Jerry Judy's name, please.
Somebody once said, it's never yesterday. It's never tomorrow. It's always today. So I just try to be happy right now.
Who said that?
It was a paraphrase of Willie Nelson.
I knew it was going to be Willie Nelson. That's like your go-to. Anyway, I decided to listen to FFT and 5 from a year ago when Dave and I talked about favorite mid-round picks. And
this is not what I want.
I think it's great because obviously you did an FFT and 5 as a prelude to the Fantasy Football Today hour-long show about mid-round picks. And so your research, you had a choice, and you chose the FFT and 5.
Well, one of them. Dave gave his favorite mid-round picks, and here's what he said.
Oh, this is going to be great. I bet they're awesome.
You started off with Chase Edmonds and Leonard Fournette. Pretty good, huh? That's excellent. Then you
1 out of 2 ain't bad. All right, let's just stop right there.
No, Edmonds.
We're good. Let's talk about the present.
That's
all right. Someone once said, yesterday is a thing and tomorrow's a thing, but today is now, so be happy. Right, Heath?
Hold on. It goes on. Chase Edmonds was a good mid-round pick, by the way. Justin Herbert, you said you liked a lot in the mid-rounds, and Joe Burrow. And then you said you like Kenyon Drake as a toward the end of the late round picks. You said Kenyon Drake. I think you absolutely nailed it. And I gave the case for James Conner. I was enthused.
Throw that in there too. That was the best one of them all.
I think Leonard Fournette was the best one of them all. But anyway, it was a good podcast. So the pressure's on to repeat last year. Well done, Dave Richard. Before we get into our mid-round philosophies and mid-round picks, we have a new Heath sigh that Heath dropped during our mic check before Dave even came on. I would say, well, I'm going to play it before I give any adjectives. So Dave, here you go. Here's the newest Heath sigh. I would call it.
That's not a sigh.
I would call it sultry.
Sultry.
That's that's a sound of disapproval.
Disapproval? I don't know.
I think that's disapproval.
Sounds like a lot of approval.
From Heath, I hear that all the time. Whenever I make a point that Heath is ready to attack seconds later on FFT.
Ooh, I think you're right. I think that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I think.
I know that. I know. I speak fluent Heath sigh.
Okay. Well, I'm going to add it to the mix. Let's talk mid-round philosophies. Dave, first of all, let's talk mid-round definition. I think we're looking at the beginning of round 6, right? After the first 60 picks are off the board. And, from round 6 through 9-ish. Roughly, we cool with that?
Roughly 6 through 9. I think we said 6 through 10 on FFT and 5, and I think Dave said 6 through 8.
Right.
Which is I told Chris Towers when he turned 30 that he was now middle-aged, and he argued with me for a long time. But I told him the average age of a human's right around at lifespans right around 80, and so you go 10 years on either side. 30 to 50 is middle-aged. He didn't quite like that, but our drafts are 15 rounds. So right about 7.5 would be the middle of the draft. I went 2.5 rounds on either side for 5 through 10, but you could make it 6 through 9 or whatever.
All right. We're going to stick with six through 9. And
I'm officially
definitely
depressed as a 45-year-old.
We're not middle-aged. If
we are 100% middle-aged. In fact, Dave and I are almost certainly over halfway done.
Well, you're going to be getting discounts on things soon, so that's good. All right, Dave, give me your mid-round philosophies. Dave, what do you got?
I'm kind of thinking about the rest of my life and the decisions I've made. I'm not sure if I'm ready to start talking about mid-round picks and drafts that don't matter for 3 more months at least.
What a show.
Did I really have to eat that second pizza in 9th grade?
You have time to change, Dave. You still have left.
Exercise is so hard.
Yeah. I know.
Okay. So the one thing that we always talk about is the dead zone with running backs. And I think that when you're drafting in round 6 through 8, especially this year, you shouldn't expect to find a lot of running backs that you can confidently start. You can find running backs that are worth that you could consider number 3 running backs or premium stashes. I'm thinking of like AJ Dillon here as someone who could be, they could fall into an amazing situation. Lottery ticket. We've used that term before. These are the best kinds of lottery tickets in round 6 through 8. But if you start your draft with a bunch of wide receivers, you take a stud tight end, you splurge at quarterback, maybe you only get 1 running back, man, round 6 through 8, you are not going to be happy with the types of runners that are there if you're looking for a starter.
But is that exactly the opposite of what I said about round 6 on a previous show? Was it round 5? Maybe?
Well, that's what I think it is this year. I'm not saying that this is annual advice.
Oh, well, no, I mean,
it kind of is.
As round 6 may
basically
have
all
Damian
the big
Harris,
hits.
AJ Dillon, Ken Walker in it. That's not so bad. Michael Carter. I don't want him.
Last year, I mean, we were just talking about the guys that you guys nailed. Leonard Fournette, James Conner. That might have been it.
Adam considers Chase Edmonds a hit. I don't.
It was a good late round pick. It wasn't a league winning pick.
Mid-round pick. We're doing mid-round.
It was a good mid-round pick. A solid pick.
So, but what were they when we were picking them in the mid rounds? Fournette was figuring to be in a timeshare with Ronald Jones. We had been told from a good source that Ronald Jones had the leg up in that competition. And James Conner definitely felt like the 1B to Chase Edmonds 1A. And he didn't really take off until it was clear that Chase Edmonds was not as big a part of that offense as we thought that he'd be. And he still was good for PPR. Edmonds was.
Yeah. It was a productive backfield. No, okay. So we're hunting for what? Quarterbacks? I mean, that's a great.
I mean, that goes without saying. Like when you get to the middle rounds, I hope you need a quarterback. And I hope you're drafting with people who, even if half your league rushes to take quarterbacks, you're still going to have your pick of the litter from, QB 6 through 15 to put on your roster. And you should be able to find somebody that you love in round 6 through 8, but you should only take that quarterback if there isn't a player you love at another position along the way. I'm looking at those players first and foremost. A lot of receivers that I like in this range.
Yeah, I think this is the prime receiver range, but like the other thing I would say is this is not where I want to get my tight end. I've come up with a new tight end strategy for 2022, and I think it might catch on. Wouldn't be surprised if you guys are saying it next year, but late or great. Like I want to get one of the first couple of guys, or I'm going to wait until the very end of the draft. I don't want to be using these mid-round picks on tight ends.
Now, did you say late or great on purpose? Because it's great or late.
I just came up with it, Adam, so I think I know what it is. It's late or great.
Right. I came up with great or late. Heath gives credit to someone else every time he brings it up. But there was one guy, though, that Dave had in his. I asked you guys for some names of your favorite mid-round picks right now, and Dave said Dalton Schultz. Does Dalton Schultz break that mold? I mean, for Dave, I guess it would. For Heath, yes. would you take a mid-round pick, on Dalton Schultz?
I think if you look at like what he did last year or what the guys in that range do, you're maybe looking at a 12 point per game kind of guy, right? 12 and a half fantasy points per game is the type of tight end, the TJ Hawkinson type that you'll find in that range. And the problem I have with that is there's a 10 point per game guy available on the waiver wire most weeks. There, and that's right around tight end 13 or 14. We always say, like, if you're streaming tight end, you're going to get right in that 10 fantasy points per game range. In those same rounds are wide receivers that I have projected at 15 points per game, at 3, 4, 5 points better per game than what you can get in round 10, 11, or 12 at the wide receiver position. So I like Dalton Schultz. I think he's going to be a good starter and a fine middle of the road tight end in fantasy. But I don't think the difference between him and the tight ends available in the double-digit rounds is as big as the difference between Brandon Cooks and Juju and guys like that and the wide receivers that are available in rounds 11, 12, 13.
The one thing that I'll push back on is that finding a 10-point PPR tight end off the waiver wire each week, we talk like it's an easy thing to do. It's easier to find that at wide receiver than it is at tight end. I feel like if you're streaming tight ends, you're hoping to get like 8 PPR points out of your guy. So there'll be a point this season where you pick up Gerald Everett off the waiver wire because it's the Chargers, high-scoring offense. He's new there. You're going to hope that he scores a touchdown or maybe get you 4 for 40. I think Schultz is going to be better than that most weeks. In fact, last year, he had at least 5 catches in 10 of 17 games. And in the other 7 games, he still got you at least 10 PPR points. Looks like 2 times. He had some duds in there. There's no question about it. But I think he gives you enough of an edge that where taking him in the mid rounds will feel okay. You're not getting the power of a Travis Kelce, but you're not spending the pick of a Travis Kelce, and you're getting somebody who should outperform a late round tight end without necessarily having to spend, the late round pick. You're taking him a little bit earlier. I think the value's fair if you're getting Schultz somewhere between 6 or 8.
I think there's a potential for a lot better than what we saw from Schultz, and he was the number 5 tight end in fantasy per game. He was number 4 for the season in non-PPR, number 3 in full PPR, but we haven't really said, there's no Amari Cooper. That's a huge deal. Whenever he got targeted, whenever he had 5 or more targets, he did well, basically. Now he didn't get a ton of targets really until late in the season. He started to get like 8, 9, but usually he was capped out at 8. I think there may have been a 9 or 10 target game in there. But Schultz, without Amari Cooper,
well,
again, I keep bringing it up. Goddard gets A.J. Brown. Hawkinson gets Jamison Williams and the emergence of Amon-Ra St. Brown the way he did at the end of last year.
And DJ Chark.
And DJ Chark. That's not nothing. He's better than the guys they had on the outside, I think. What else am I missing here? Alberto, obviously, but Zach Ertz. Well, there's no Hopkins for 6 games, but Zach Ertz gets Marquise Brown and Trey McBride. Schultz has clearly not been affected by who the Cowboys have brought in. He has benefited, I think, target-wise from the absence of Amari Cooper, who he was tied with in targets last year for second on the team.
Remember, when Schultz broke out and had that big run, it started in the second half of week 1 when Gallup got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you, Adam, and it's probably the first point I should have made. But the dude gets a lot of targets. He's got a chance to finish first or second on the Cowboys in targets. And you can find him in the middle rounds. He'll be better than the tight end that you take with a late pick.
Yeah, and I just wonder if, both are true, right? The philosophy of this is not a great time for tight ends, but maybe Dalton Schultz is the exception. I don't think Heath feels that way. I think Dave does.
Where would you take Dalton Schultz then?
I think I have him in round 9.
I would jump on that if I could.
Yeah, I have.
I would love that.
I have Goddard and Schultz both in round 9.
That would make me feel better about having to take Metamucil every morning. And I also forgot to take my Metamucil this morning. My wife's going to kill me.
So, Dave, what round would you take Schultz in?
If I really couldn't find anybody that I liked in round 6, I would consider it then. I do think that's early. I will admit that it's early. I believe I have him ranked as a round 7 pick.
I know it's certainly not the same finding a top 12 tight end compared to finding a top 12 wide receiver. So I'll just say this. Your chances of finding I'd say that based on recent trends, your chances of finding a top 5 tight end late are much better than your chances of finding a top 12 wide receiver, actually. When you look at top 12 wide receivers over the last 4 years, there have only been 8 drafted after round 6, and 4 of them were last year. Jamar Chase obviously being one of them, Deebo Samuel being one of them. I think Jalen Waddle was one of them in full PPR, and there was one more, Hunter Renfrow, I believe. But usually we get 1 or 2 a year after round 6 So keep that in mind. I mean, the wide receivers might look tempting, but his history says once you get past the first 60 picks, first 72 picks, so round 6, sorry, you're not going to find a ton of top 12 wide receivers. Whereas tight end, you get so many
You got
guys.
a shot.
Yeah, that each of the past 3 seasons, 3 of the top 6 tight ends were drafted in round 10 or later, including some who weren't drafted at all. All right, let's take a little break to talk about the schedule for next week. We're going back to 3 episodes a week, sort of. Let's call it 3.5. We got Monday, rookie debates with a surprise guest. Not going to tell you who it is, but it's a great guest. Tuesday, dynasty talk. We're going to be ranking the rookies.
Do we have a surprise guest then too?
Yeah, yeah. We're surprised. We don't even know who it is yet, but we will have a guest for that show as well. And then Thursday, we're going to do a mock draft recap. And Thursday night, we're going to react to the schedule. The schedule comes out. We'll be crunching the numbers and whatever, and looking for matchups, good and bad and whatnot, and talking about the schedule for a bit. That's Thursday night. So 3.5 episodes. We'll call it 4 next week. News and notes. Pete Carroll says he does not see the Seahawks trading for a quarterback. He also says he expects the Seahawks to extend DK Metcalf. Heath, what did you make of Pete Carroll's always reliable comments?
Yeah, I did not make of them, but I have accepted the fact that my projections no longer have a blank for the Seattle Seahawks quarterback. Drew Lock is locked in, you might say, as QB1 for the Seahawks, which was led to yet another downgrade for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in my projections. Metcalf now wide receiver 28, Lockett wide receiver 31. And just for reference, for those of you who were wondering, Drew Lock, I believe he's quarterback 32. No, 31, still ahead of Sam Darnold. But yeah, I this is discouraging. If the Browns cut Baker Mayfield and Seattle signs him, then I would feel a little bit better about DK and Lockett. And I would understand maybe ranking DK a little higher than what projections are just because he possesses the upside he does. But I'm not sure either one of them are going to be top 24 wide receivers this year.
Are we sure that it's going to be Drew Lock?
It might be Geno Smith.
I think it could be Geno Smith.
That would not make me feel any better.
No, but at least he connected with DK in those 4 games. It was really 3 starts, but 4 games if you include coming in against the Rams.
DK was very good with Geno Smith in that half game against the Rams. He was great against the Jaguars. As I recall, terrible against the Steelers. And
he had that big play against the Saints.
He had a BS, should have been offensive pass interference, like 95-yard touchdown or something.
Still counted. Still got the points for it.
Basically all of his production. But I think when you look at him, he really wasn't very good with Geno Smith, who averaged 190 passing yards per game in 3 games. Dave, who would you rather it be for the sake of Metcalf and Lockett, Geno or Lock?
Unfortunately, I bet we're going to see both of them. I think it's for the best. I like that Geno Smith's been there. He's done it for a few games. I do not have a lot of faith in Drew Lock at quarterback.
And so one of the things that he mentioned was Pete Carroll said they're not going to trade for a wide receiver, or for a quarterback, apologize. But if Baker Mayfield gets cut, which could happen, he's owed so much money that it's going to be a little bit difficult to trade him. Then that would change things, obviously.
And maybe this won't work. I don't know what Baker really could do about it other than give up his money. But if I was the Browns, I would not cut Baker Mayfield until I was told how long Deshaun Watson's suspension is.
That's exactly what's going on.
If Watson's not going to play the first 6 weeks of the season, then Baker Mayfield is my week 1 starter.
You think Baker Mayfield's cool with that?
Okay, don't play and we won't pay you.
Yeah, I guess, but it just seems like such an uncomfortable situation.
Or play really well, and maybe somebody who you want to go start for will trade for you to be a starter.
All right, next note, the Chargers signed linebacker Kyle Van Noy. He will now be on
defense.
3rd new team in 3 years. Yeah, but that's the thing. I don't know how great of a signing that this is.
No, he just adds depth for them, but they are great on all 3 levels of the defense. If they were not in the AFC West, they would be the number 1 DST for fantasy. I almost force myself to keep them out of the top 10 DSTs because I know that they're playing the Chiefs twice. Raiders twice, the Broncos twice.
And they're the Chargers, so like they're probably
Right, half of
going to
them will
have
be hurt by weekend.
3 injuries, and they're going to give up a 97-yard touchdown pass with 3 seconds left. It's going to hurt their points and yards.
Greg Allman of The Athletic thinks it's more likely that Rob Gronkowski returns rather than retires. Ron Rivera compared Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson to D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, a backfield tandem in Carolina. And let me give you some numbers on those guys. They played 7 seasons together in Carolina, that's pretty remarkable, by the way, for 2 running backs to be there in tandem and get a lot of carries. Basically, there were some injuries, but for 7 straight years. And in those 7 seasons, D'Angelo Williams had 1,167 carries in 88 games, and Jonathan Stewart had 1,041 carries, roughly 100 fewer, just, roughly, in 90 games, in 2 more games. So it was a pretty even split. D'Angelo had 41 touchdowns. Stewart had 30 touchdowns. Of course, this is really more just an interesting factoid. It doesn't mean it's going to be like that, but
I think we need to have a long talk at some point about Antonio Gibson and how we feel about him, because there's plenty of debate going on within the industry about whether Brian Robinson should really even impact him, whether Washington even sees him as their running back past this year. Like, there's I wouldn't say mixed signals from Washington. The signals have been fairly universally aligned in that we want to have a lot more running backs on the team besides Antonio Gibson. They went to great lengths to keep J.D. McKissick after he'd already agreed to a deal with the Bills. And then they make this pick after having Breece Hall and Ken Walker both in for top 30 visits, and they didn't have very many draft picks. So like I said, I dropped Gibson out of my top 20 running backs in both redraft and dynasty.
Yeah, I don't know if now's the time unless he ends up being a mid-round pick. But yes, you're right. He's an interesting player. And could you imagine just what the fantasy community would be thinking if they had drafted Breece Hall instead of Brian Robinson?
Well, it'd be over.
I'm sorry. If they had drafted Isaiah Spiller, they couldn't have taken Breece Hall. If they had drafted Isaiah Spiller instead of Brian,
well, they could have. They could have took him
not where they took Robinson, right? So that's
of course not.
I think that people have doubts about Brian Robinson. They probably would be more excited about Spiller than Robinson in that spot.
I think that the problem is that, like, McKissick really caps his receiving upside. And Spiller, that's why I wonder the reason I don't think they went and got Spiller, because I think Spiller may play more of that role. Robinson could take away the touchdowns. And the touchdowns are basically the only thing that separate Antonio Gibson from Clyde Edwards-Helaire over their first 2 years in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Robinson can catch too. I mean, you might classify him the same way as Kenneth Walker, whereas, he didn't do a ton of it in college. I don't remember exactly how many catches he had, but he can do it.
But if you were going to project a role he's going to play this season, wouldn't you think short yardage?
That would not be the role.
Short yardage.
No, he's gonna take work off of Gibson.
Could be short yardage though.
Absolutely could be.
Okay, sorry. I think Dave was disagreeing with a different part of that. Yeah, you guys agree?
I thought you were going to say Dave's agreeing with a different person that's not on the podcast.
You guys agree? He could definitely Brian Robinson.
We agree.
Yeah. Okay. All right, and I agree that it's time to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the favorite mid-round picks for Heath and Dave. I'm going to tell Heath why I don't believe in what he's about to tell us about his first 3 guys on the list. He's going to say, well, it's a fact, and then it's going to be a weird argument. So anyway, we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. So the first 3 guys that Heath mentions in his favorite mid-round picks, like I said on Fantasy Football Today in 5, I believe that NFC, which is where we're looking, that their ADP data was hacked and is not accurate, because how are Michael Thomas and Brandon Cooks mid-round picks? It makes no sense to me. They don't go anywhere near there in our drafts. They went in rounds 3 and 4 in the draft we did on Tuesday. Juju is the other one. That one I could see. But yes, technically you're right, Heath. The values for Juju Smith-Schuster, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Thomas are great. They are mid-round picks. For some reason, I don't feel like Cooks and Thomas will be once we get to draft season. But I don't know what else to say, because you are technically right. They are mid-round picks. So it's Juju Smith-Schuster, Brandon Cooks, and Michael Thomas.
I think Michael Thomas is the one who I would agree with you doesn't belong here, but he's here. So we should at least mention him, because if anybody gets to late round 5, early round 6, and Michael Thomas is available, they should take him. I don't understand why you don't think that Brandon Cooks is going to be available in round 6 or round 7. Brandon Cooks is always available in round 6 or round 7. Then he has 1,100 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns and finishes as a borderline or mid-range number 2 wide receiver. And then the next year he's available in round 6 or round 7 again. That's just what Brandon Cooks does.
All right. Okay, I could buy it. He's going 74th. So I can buy that.
I just think, like, if this is real, and especially like the Juju one and the Cooks one, if we want to forget about Michael Thomas and just put the little asterisk there saying, if he's a mid-round pick in your draft him. We all agree on that, I think. But if I can have Cooks and Juju in the 6-7 ranges, that can really, I think, make me feel more comfortable taking Kelsey or Andrews at the 1-2 turn. If I could get my number 1 running back or number 1 wide receiver and one of the 2 top tight ends, and then just go best player available for a couple rounds, knowing that I've got my number 2 and number 3 wide receiver there at the 6-7 turn, or it wouldn't be the 6-7 turn, but in round 6 and round 7, then I feel great about that.
That's a great point. All right. I don't know that we need to expand too much on that. Like the opportunities. You still like Juju in round 6-ish with the addition of Sky Moore?
Yeah, I'm not as certain of Sky Moore's role in his first year with the Chiefs. I don't think it's going to be a high volume one as a rookie. I did not think I thought upside wise, he was very close to that top tier of wide receivers, but he lacks some polish, especially in his route running. He can do some things on a low volume basis where the Chiefs create opportunities for him, maybe some jet sweeps, maybe some flies, like just get him open because teams aren't paying attention. But I don't think there's a scenario where Sky Moore in year 1 turns into the number 1 wide receiver beating coverage that's actually paying attention to him.
All right, we'll get Dave involved here as we talk about our next group of.
Dave might disagree with me on Sky Moore. That might be a good place, but.
Well, I think that between Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, and MVS, and it could be at different points in the year, they're each gonna have a turn being the, a fantasy.
They're each gonna have a turn being the third option behind Kelsey and Juju, right?
Right. That's the whole idea. But they'll have weeks where they're good, and people will gravitate toward them, and then they won't be good anymore, and then they will drop them. So I think all those receivers are, close to double-digit round material. More you might grab in round 9 just because of the hype with him. And I think he's a good player. But it's really going to come down to 2 factors. One, how well are the Chiefs going to run the ball when they decide they want to run the ball? And 2, how our defense is going to play them. And defenses might disrespect Moore, Hardman, and MVS and think that they can't beat them deep. And they'll play a different type of defense than what they did last year. And then Mahomes will take shots downfield. We kind of want that if we've got Patrick Mahomes.
Who do you think's not on the field week 1?
What do you mean?
Well, I don't
not on the field.
I don't think they're going to play 4 wide receivers. It's going to be Sky Moore early.
It's not going to be 4. It'll be 3 wide receivers.
Right.
You're counting Kelsey as a wide receiver.
No, Kelsey's a tight end.
Right. So it's going to be a running back, Kelsey. Juju's going to be on the field.
MVS is going to be on the field with that money they just.
I think so too, and I think Hardman will probably be there.
I think it's Hardman versus Sky Moore.
Well, it's possible that I think if you look at the snap counts for Pringle, Robinson, and Hardman,
right,
probably we're looking at the 3 of them are rotating,
right,
and so it might be a situation like that's
what's going to happen.
Pringle sort of rose to the top, but yeah, I mean they'll rotate. I don't know what week 1 will be like, but they have some depth. They'll rotate.
But if you give those names again from last year, Hardman, Pringle, DeMarcus Robinson,
right.
And throw Josh Gordon in there. He had a couple of opportunities.
He's still on the team.
None of them were ever reliable for fantasy.
Right.
No.
I mean, you might start Hardman in a league where you start 4 receivers and extra flexes, something like that.
All right. So listen, you talked about the Chiefs running the ball. So let's talk about 3 running backs that Heath highlighted here, going between 89th overall and 97th overall. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, and Chase Edmonds. How do you view them, Heath? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Miles Sanders, Chase Edmonds.
I like Clyde the best, Edmonds second, and Sanders third in full PPR. But I think they're all way undervalued at this cost. And I kind of like what you said about the wide receivers. I feel about these running backs, like they're not really going to be there, are they? But I think there's a chance that they are there at the 5-6 turn or in round 6. I don't think they'll be there quite this late. I think there's a chance that this is the best fantasy season of Clyde's career, with Ronald Jones taking some of the early downs work and nobody taking him off the fields on passing downs.
If that's what happens.
Right. As the team's currently constructed, that's like maybe they bring Darrell Williams back and all of a sudden Clyde gets squeezed out completely. But I think like having spent a first round pick on him, you might want to give him one season where you feature him in the way that he was used before you drafted him, instead of trying to make him a between the tackles rusher and letting somebody else handle the passing downs. So that's what I'm hopeful for.
That's what I'm hopeful for too. But I was hopeful for that before the 2020 season. That's why I remember having Edwards-Helaire ranked as high as I did when he was a rookie. There's got to be something there that told the coaches, do not put him in that role. And I don't know what it is.
I think he couldn't pass protect early in his career.
Well, and so how did he do pass protecting in the second half of last year? Did he even get a lot of opportunities to do that? I don't know if he did.
Well,
and so unless he really improves in that, I would imagine that he's a candidate to get squeezed and someone else gets that role. It won't be Ronald Jones. Jones has had that opportunity. Jones is a 2-down running back. And if he's good, he's going to take Edwards-Helaire off the field in those 2 downs.
Mm-hmm. I think that Clyde and Miles Sanders probably had bigger workloads than people might realize before their injuries. So Clyde, in his first 4 games before he got hurt, he averaged 5 yards per carry. He had 58 carries. He was on pace for 246 carries. Not enormous, but it's not bad at all. Miles Sanders was really weird. They weren't possessing the ball. They were losing. They were 2-5, I think, in their first 7 games. They were throwing so much. So his carries were really low, but he had almost every running back carry. I don't think there's really been a time in the last 2 seasons where Miles Sanders has not been the lead running back. They just before they decided to, go all Ravens on us, they just didn't run the ball very much with their running backs. So he's clearly the best guy in my opinion. And I know he scored 0 touchdowns last year, but the other 3 running backs combined for 12 rushing touchdowns. And 10 of those 12 were week 7 or later. So it's not like no running back can score a rushing touchdown on Philadelphia. It just was extremely unlucky that Miles Sanders never was that guy. Jalen Hurts is definitely going to take some, but that doesn't mean the other guys won't get rushing touchdowns.
I think the key will come in out, like what does he get to do, if anything, in the passing game?
Yeah. And they barely threw to their running backs when they changed their offense, but we expect them to throw the ball more. He's going to have to compete with Gainwell and maybe Scott there. I don't know. So are they top 24 guys for you? Or are they number 3?
Clyde is the top 24 guy. Edmonds and Sanders are just outside. This is full PPR. But I think Edmonds, I kind of think Edmonds is just going to be the clear best running back in Miami.
Could be.
What happens when Mostert gets hurt?
Right. That's when Edmonds becomes the clear lead running back in Miami. Although there will be somebody else there.
Right.
I think he's a cinch to get all the high value touches when that happens.
Jalen Hurts was the quarterback that you highlighted, Heath. You have him as QB4. So bottom line is there's going to be some quarterback in this range that any fantasy drafter loves. For you, it's Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think I don't expect the same leap that we got from Josh Allen from Stephon Diggs, but I do expect a leap. It's much easier to be an accurate passer when you have wide receivers who have 3 to 4 yards of separation because you don't have to be near as accurate. And so I would anticipate a big increase in his passing efficiency, a big increase in his pass attempts. And he's also going to be one of the best rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. He absolutely has QB1 overall upside.
Wow. Do you think he has that, Dave? Because I think you have him 13th on Jalen Hurts.
I think it's not. I have a hard time believing he's got QB1 upside. But does he have QB5 upside? Yeah. I think that he's one of many quarterbacks that has QB5 upside. I agree that they're going to throw more. How could they not? I think they threw the ball 42% of the time from week 8 on It's definitely low and lowest in the NFL from that point on. But they really leaned on the run game, and Hurts is a part of that, and that's great. You mentioned all the touchdowns that running backs had in Philadelphia, not named Miles Sanders. Well, look at the touchdowns Hurts had. Hurts was stealing them from Miles Sanders, and he'll continue to do that. So that rushing potential is great. The passing upside still worries me, even though they've got A.J. Brown there. And Brown does seem like the exact type of receiver who can help Jalen Hurts pick up more yards. But I still have concerns, especially about deep throws, decision making when that first read isn't open, stuff like that could lead to Hurts disappointing as a passer, which means he'd have to make up a lot for it as a rusher.
Okay, let's go to Dave's guys. So you talked about Dalton Schultz. Glad that was a good discussion we had earlier on in the show if you want to hear it. And that was in our philosophies section. Anyway, A.J. Dillon is one of your running backs, and the other 4 are wide receivers. So A.J. Dillon goes ahead of Clyde and Sanders by about a round and a half, I'd say. Clyde is 89th, and Dillon was 71st overall. End of round 6 for A.J. Dillon. Does that feel like a good time for A.J. Dillon?
I know it doesn't sound like it's a good time for A.J. Dillon, but that's right around when you should expect to see him. And if you get him in round 7, call it a small win. But I've got them back to back in my PPR rankings. Miles Sanders, Clyde, Chase Edmonds, A.J. Dillon. And if you look at those numbers that the Packers had, their running backs when they were splitting following the knee injury to Aaron Jones, when he came back, Dillon was getting more carries, 2 more per game than Aaron Jones. He wasn't catching the ball as much. He was still getting some targets, but he wasn't catching the ball like Aaron Jones. And the construction of that offense in Green Bay suggests that they will lean on their running backs considerably more than they have in the past without necessarily having to give them an overload of work because there's 2 really good ones there. So I think he's one of the best number 3 running backs that you can draft.
It's funny because I have Edmonds, Clyde, and Sanders all ahead of Dillon. They're all going 20 spots after Dillon. And I still agree with Dave that Dillon's a good value where he's going. So, yes, I think all 4 of those guys are good values. I would take the 3 I said, which I said it first. So, like we always have, it's a race to see who gets the email in first and gets to pick the best guys. But no, I think Dillon's an excellent choice as a mid-round value as well. And listen, if something happened to Aaron Jones, who's a 27-year-old running back, and
you're talking about a top 5 running back,
could be a top 5 running back, or could be a terrible Packers offense.
Let's take all 4 of those guys, and let's say another running back in the backfield gets hurt. So Ronald Jones, pick up Eagles guy, Aaron Jones, and
Dillon has the best upside if somebody gets hurt.
Oh, and Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
Rank the upsides.
Dillon is 1. To me, it comes down between Sanders and Edwards-Helaire. I think I might lean toward Clyde.
The problem,
because I think the Eagles will just find somebody to take some of that work away from.
I kind of feel that way about Clyde, though. Like Derek Gore was doing it to Clyde last year.
So put Edmonds too. Come on, let's go.
I think Edmonds is 2.
Yeah. Come on, Dave.
Not ready to do it.
Okay.
One of the things I said earlier was that Edmonds would get high value touches. He's barely gotten touches near the goal line in his career. So the only thing that would help him out is that he's on a new team, new coaching staff, philosophical differences from what the Cardinals had. Maybe that helps Edmonds get that role if it presented itself. And it probably will because Raheem Mostert isn't staying healthy for 17.
Okay, let's talk about 4 wide receivers here that could go in the 80-ish range. Adam Thielen's ADP is 86th. Gabriel Davis, 83rd. Allen Lazard and Treylon Burks. I'm not going to get their ADPs because I've been looking at average draft position since April 1st. So obviously Treylon Burks, it's much different now. But Allen Lazard, Treylon Burks, Gabriel Davis, and Adam Thielen. These are 4 wide receivers that you like in the mid rounds, Dave. Break it down.
They all have different qualities that I think make them interesting for fantasy, and those qualities are what should make you gravitate toward taking them. Thielen's definitely going to be unpopular. He's old. He gets hurt every year, but the man is a red zone machine for Kirk Cousins, and he'll continue to be that as long as he's healthy in Minnesota. And I think the Vikings offense, we've talked about this already, really since Kevin O'Connell got hired. I think they become a little bit more aggressive. They're certainly going to be a little more innovative, maybe a little less run heavy than they were under Mike Zimmer when he was the head coach. I like Thielen a lot. I think he can still pick up a lot of catches and a lot of touchdowns to go along with it. Treylon Burks, we talked about his opportunity in Tennessee to go and get 120 plus targets. It's a Titans offense that won't throw a lot, but there's still a ton of opportunity there because A.J. Brown no longer on the team. Robert Woods, the number 2 receiver. He's 30 years old coming off of an ACL. There's questions about how explosive and how available he will be compared to Burks. And there's already the report from ESPN that says that they're going to force feed Burks. It makes sense. He's their Derrick Henry at wide receiver. Gabriel Davis should break out with Buffalo. He's going to be their number 2 wide receiver. Scored a ton of touchdowns in the playoffs. Everybody knows this. He was also very explosive. Before the show, Adam asked me to get the explosive rate for wide receivers last year because he had a feeling about Allen Lazard. Well, Gabriel Davis was number 2 in explosive catch rate, meaning percentage of his plays that were good for 16 or more yards. Second among wide receivers with at least 40 catches, Gabriel Davis was. He's got room to improve. Coaches have been talking him up. He's going to play a ton. He's a big play machine. I love Gabriel Davis and think he's absolutely worth taking early in this range. And then there's Lazard, who, Packers signed Sammy Watkins. We overlook Lazard. They draft 2 rookie wide receivers. We overlook Lazard. I don't think we need to overlook Lazard anymore. And he was, what was he, Adam? Was he 16th or 19th in explosive rate last year?
So Dave sent me a link that I could not interpret at all. So I forgot to ask you. Yeah, it was. I really could not understand what I was looking at. So you tell me.
Okay, you're a non-analytics nerd. And do I have it in front of me because I'm working off of a different computer? I do have it in front of me. Allen Lazard last year was 16th in the NFL with a 21.9 explosive play rate, higher than Devontae Adams. It can't be the only reason why you take Allen Lazard. That's not enough. But you've got to figure his target share goes up because Devontae Adams isn't there anymore. Rodgers is reliable on him. He's a big dude. He's not necessarily like, I saw this explosive number and I kind of went crazy.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Because he's not a burner by any stretch, but he's put in position to make plays. And I don't think he'll get number 1 receiver coverage. I think teams are going to try and focus on stopping the run, and play action is going to be Allen Lazard's best friend, especially in the red zone because of his size. He had 8 touchdowns last year.
Rank them. Rank these 4.
I'm going to put Gabriel Davis at the top of this list. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Thielen?
I'm going to put Thielen at the top of the list. And then I think I'll go Burks and Davis, but they're really close. And if I've got the stones, I'll put Davis ahead of Burks. I probably should because Burks is a rookie. And then Lazard brings up the rear, but I think he might be the best value of them all.
Yeah, I'd go Thielen, round break, Gabe, Lazard, round break, Burks.
That's almost exactly how they were drafted in the draft we did on Tuesday, but it was Thielen, round break, Davis, Burks, round break, and then Lazard was the last. He went in round 9. Burks and Davis went 2 picks apart in round 7. And Dave Richard had the last pick of round 5 and the first pick of round 6. And we're talking about players who are going to go in the mid rounds, which we defined as round 6 through 9-ish.
Nice.
So Dave took Adam Thielen with the last pick of round 5 instead of the first pick of round 6, rendering this entire exercise pointless.
Who did you take in the first pick of round 6?
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody knows that like 6 through 9 is where you want to get your quarterback. You don't want to reach into the first 5 rounds for a quarterback.
Exactly. If you had taken Herbert 60th overall instead of 61st, it would have been a reach.
Yeah, I'd have been disappointed.
So, okay. So Gabriel Davis, some of my favorite stats. He's had 7. He had 7 or more targets in 2 of 3 games without Emmanuel Sanders and 8 targets in a game that Sanders left early with an injury. So if you want to user stat that, 4 games that Sanders left early with an injury or didn't play at all, Gabriel Davis had 7 or more targets. And that's a huge deal. This is a guy who's had 3 or fewer targets in half of his NFL games, half of his regular season NFL games. His touchdown rate is also one of the most, it's got to be is it the highest in football, Heath? Touchdowns per target?
Well, I doubt it was high. Like, what was his touchdowns per target last year?
He had 63 targets and 6 touchdowns.
No, there were players who were over 10% last year.
Okay. He had 7 touchdowns on 62 targets as a rookie. And
career it could be.
Well, yeah, I mean it's up there. He's had basically almost any time he gets 4 or more targets. 16 games with 4 or more targets, he's had 11 touchdowns in those games. It's crazy.
I would anticipate his touchdown rate is going to go down this year if he has the success we're hoping for.
Yeah, but many more targets.
Which maybe sound like it's a weird thing to say, but it's true.
All right, it's also a mailbag day today, so let's get into that. We got Apple Podcast questions. We got some emails. Start with Apple Podcast. Stefiki. Give up Tyreek Hill, get DeAndre Hopkins, and a 2023 first-round rookie pick.
I don't think it's enough for Hill.
I've really downgraded DeAndre Hopkins because he's an older wide receiver who also now is not going to be great for you this year. But the difference between Hill and Hopkins for me is smaller than what I would project for a 2023 first. I think what would probably determine this for me is looking at that other person's roster. And if I think they're one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league, I probably wouldn't do this deal. If I don't, I would.
I'm starting to assume that the people who are willing to give up first-round picks next year are people who have a really good dynasty roster. And they're looking to make that one trade to put them over the top.
If all fantasy managers were competent, that would be true. But they're not.
I know 2 fantasy football managers that are so bad that they can't even tank. They try to tank. And
one of them did a great job tanking. The other one did good enough.
I've been looking because I think I have 5 picks in the top 18 of our rookie draft, and 18's right about where I think the cutoff is. So I think it's worked out okay.
Convenient.
I'm looking to trade out of number 2 and try to get a pick in the top 7.
Okay. Now you're trying to trade out of 2. I remember when I wanted to.
Well, you were offering David Montgomery, and that was when I thought I had a chance of being good this year. But then all of my top 3 wide receivers got worse in the month since then.
I don't recall offering Montgomery for number 2.
No, you said what would you have to give in addition to Montgomery for number 2?
I said that?
Yeah, because I was offering 10 for Montgomery.
Yeah, I wasn't going to take that.
No.
Okay.
You were not. And I was not going to give you 2 for Montgomery, and I still wouldn't.
All right, guys, back to the Apple Podcast questions. This is from Rob in Ontario. Hey, Willie, Jace, Phil, Cy and Phil, I think. I don't know who those people are. Thanks for an entertaining show. Okay, I have a strategy question for my 12-team standard scoring dynasty league. 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. I have picks 111, 211 in the 2020 rookie-only draft. My roster is Mahomes, Mixon, Jacobs, Dillon, Darrell Henderson, Michelle, Michael Carter, Ramondre Stevenson, Hopkins, Diggs, Cooper, and then Chenault and Chark. Darren Waller is a very good team. I'm considering offering Hopkins and both of this year's picks, 111 and 211, for a 2023 first rounder. I believe I can compete this year with the players I would still have and would pick up an early pick next year. What are your thoughts?
Kind of similar to what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
With the Tyreek trade. But let's go back to what Heath said. Is the team that you're trading with going to be good because you give them these picks and player? Or are they going to be mediocre to sucky and you get a really good first round pick?
A lot to give up, though.
Oh, I don't think this is a lot to give up for a first next year. Not at all.
I mean, you're probably giving up like George Pickens and Trey McBride and DeAndre Hopkins for a first next year.
You think McBride's lasting till late round 2?
I was just going with where I have him.
Wow.
Maybe he won't.
I love that if that's where you're getting McBride.
Let's see. Pick number 23, Wan'Dale Robinson. I have Trey McBride at 22.
Damn, sniped.
Yeah, you were sniped.
Yeah, I always talk about how good the 2023 class looks, but a lot of that is quarterbacks. But so I don't know if you don't want.
There's plenty of receivers and running backs as well. I would make the offer and hope he accepts.
Okay. From Charlie Barron, I have Mahomes. They have Murray and want to trade me straight across. Your opinion? I want to decline or counter to Murray plus a wide receiver running back. So anyway, he has Mahomes and they have Murray. Who would you rather have? And if you say Mahomes, would you then say, all right, fine, throw in a running back or receiver and we're talking here?
Depends on who the running back and receiver is.
Yes, I know that. But so give me
someone good. It's got to be somebody good.
Oh.
No, I'm not making the deal even
How much of a difference is there between Murray and Mahomes?
I think there's considerable difference because what happens if Kyler Murray and the Cardinals don't have a good year this year? Is he on a different team next year? Almost certainly he'll have a different coach next year.
So give me a running back or wide receiver that you would take with Murray to give up.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I wouldn't need that much.
How about Josh Jacobs?
I wouldn't. I mean, I would take Murray and Josh Jacobs for Mahomes. Yes. I don't think it should take that much.
I guess.
Okay.
I guess I would take Jacobs with him because I'm worried about if Jacobs has a bad year this year, same thing with him. Where does he end up? They just drafted Zamir White, new coaching staff. They're going to get Jacobs off the books next year and give him his 5th-year option.
Okay. Emails, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com.
I think Mahomes is one of the safest players you could have on your fantasy team in Dynasty.
That's true.
I don't know the name of the emailer here, but he said
it's Bob.
Dear Jesse, Mike, Justin, and Tony.
Hint. They're his best friends. That's not a hint. That's the answer.
Okay. But I didn't know if that was like a pop culture reference and it was like they were his best friend, like they were on Friends or something. I don't know. But no, they're just his best friends. I have that's a lot of best friends, by the way. That's impressive. 4 best friends.
Is that impressive or is that fraudulent?
If you have 4 best friends, you have no best friends.
I think in truth, I think Jesse's really his best friend, as he listed him first. So sorry, Mike, Justin, and Tony. You're 1A, B, and C, or you're 1B, C, and D. I have a question. What year 3 or year 4 wide receivers will be considered a bust this year? Like Judy doesn't do good with Wilson. Is he officially a bust?
Okay, so you're asking from like a career standpoint and not a redraft standpoint this year.
Mm-hmm. It's put up or shut up, basically. And this is Juan. Juan is the emailer, by the way.
Judy's the best guess.
I think Mooney could be up there.
But he was I struggle with that because he was a 5th-round pick. He's already done more than you could have rightfully expected when he was drafted.
Yeah, but maybe we've seen the best from him. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know what's going to happen because that team's looking ugly. But that was the first name that I thought of.
Christian Kirk?
Yeah.
What year is he? Is this his 4th year?
Oh, it might be his 5th.
If he reached free agency, then it's probably his 5th year.
Yeah.
The 3-4 thing is kind of a weird designator because there's more, I think, year 2 guys. Maybe Brandon Ayuk.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
All right, good job, Heath. You carry the team. You made your 2 best friends, Adam and Dave, very, very happy. Very proud. From Jenna, I'm in a 12-team Superflex tight end premium dynasty league. I might be competing, but only with a few tweaks and the usual luck. I just sold David Montgomery for Derek Carr, Superflex.
Yep.
And now I might take a run at winning. I'm shopping pick 103, and the Gibson manager is interested, but I'm thinking of pairing 103 and DK Metcalf. So pairing it with DK Metcalf and a 3rd-round pick to get George Kittle, Hollywood Brown, and 1.9. What do you think?
She said she was trying to win.
1.3 DK Metcalf and a 3rd-round pick for Kittle, Hollywood Brown, and 1.9.
So I think 1.9 in Superflex could be a very excellent place to be as long as somebody takes Pickett in the first 8 picks, because then you're getting one of the top 8, and I like that a lot. I'm not sure there'll be an enormous difference between 1.3 and 1.9 in that scenario. But DK's a lot better than Hollywood, and I'd rather have 103 than Kittle.
DK's a lot better than Hollywood this year, but you just said that you
not
have
this year. Not this year. I'm saying for Dynasty.
Jenna wants to win. So,
But if she's got DK Metcalf in 103, she's still got a squad that can compete. And she can go in with the intention. She can do what I did last year. I went into the year intending to compete. And then I got a little unlucky early on. I said, nuts to this. And I started setting terrible lineups and winning. It was weird.
I would not trade the 103 for Gibson. Let's do that first. No. I would not.
Agreed. But it's funny. I bet.
I didn't.
I wonder if we would have said, yes, you should have done that 6 months ago.
Well, I think we might have. And I think things were different 6 months ago.
They were. Yeah.
All right. So it doesn't sound like you guys are too enthused about this.
I like the Kittle idea more because your tight end is where you really need help. I'm really not convinced in a 12-team league you're ready to be making trades to try to win. I mean,
all right. She did give her lineup.
Let's hear the lineup. Maybe that'll, because I have an idea, an alternative idea.
Dak Prescott, and then she'll either start Derek Carr or Daniel Jones. I don't know, who would you guys start?
Carr.
Okay, Carr.
But Jones could be in for a pretty decent year.
No. Waddle, Metcalf, Amari Cooper.
That's excellent.
Aaron Jones, Pollard, CEH, Ronald Jones, and no tight end, Ingram and Tunyon. Oh, not good tight ends.
I think if you make that trade for Kittle, you're going to get in the playoffs. So I think
you stand pat and hope to get Hall or Walker at 103.
I think
I was going to suggest maybe offer 103 for Kittle and 109.
She has the worst kind of team in Dynasty. It's
old.
But it's in the middle.
Right.
It's middle. It's not.
How many teams? Did she say 12 teams?
Yeah.
I bet she's closer to the top than the middle.
If I had this team, I would be probably. I just began a teardown of a pretty similar team. In the past week, I've traded Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Jones, and Darren Waller.
Wow. I wrote that because we got to hear about that on another show. I want to know what you got for them. Let's read more emails here. This is from another one where I don't have. No, I do have it. King Hassan from the largest city west of the Mississippi River.
Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's Los Angeles, right? Hey, Chuck, Ed, Kyle, and Baxter. I don't know, but I feel like I should. I'm stressing out. I'm on the clock in my Dynasty 12-team Superflex PPR league. This email was sent a few days ago, so
hopefully there's no clock.
I have pick 5. I'm deciding between Jameson Williams and Malik Willis.
Oh, come on.
Just go Jameson Williams.
Yep. Jameson Williams.
Yeah. All right, from Bobby. Garrett Wilson fell to me at 109. What?
Excellent.
I was offered a 2023 first, a 2023 third, a 2024 second, and a 2020. And he put 2023 third again. It's probably 2024 third. So a first and a third next year, and a second and a third in 2024 for Garrett Wilson. The first should be early as his team is not competitive. Do it.
That's a yes.
Do it.
Okay. This is from Andrew. I just want to say that the grunting intro is hilarious, and I laugh every time it's brought up. All right, cool.
Same.
Dear Steve,
I went back and watched my my acting.
Yeah.
To the video yesterday. I nailed it. I got to give myself credit.
Good. Good job. Just like you nailed Leonard Fournette and Chase Edmonds last year, Dave. It was a big show for you.
Yeah.
I'm just full of goodness.
Oh, Chuck, Ed, Kyle, and Baxter is Last Man Standing. You ever see that show?
Yeah, I have.
It was a show that I watched. I was like, this is really funny. And I stopped watching for some reason. A lot of shows like that.
It's got, I liked it better before they killed off Al, but.
I thank you for that. I mean,
what?
I didn't know they killed off anyone, and who says I wasn't going to go back and watch it? But you also thought that
you didn't get the joke.
You didn't.
Oh no, I didn't get the joke. What was the joke?
Who's the lead character of Last Man Standing?
Will Forte. Is that the same show?
No.
Oh, what's Last Man Standing?
Tim Allen's on Last Man Standing.
The Tim Allen show.
What's the show I'm thinking of where like the world ends and there's only a few people left, and one of them is Will Forte. Last Man on Earth.
I don't know.
Show. I think that's YouTube. Help me out here. Okay, I think it's called Last Man on Earth. Yeah, that was what I was thinking of. I'm sorry, with Will Forte. That was really funny.
Still a good joke.
Okay, well,
is there an email to read, or are we done here?
Yeah, no, we're done. No, there's an email. Dynasty, Superflex, PPR, 12 teams. We start 2 flex and 2 receive, whatever. I have pick 104. What should I do with pick 104? So it is Superflex, and he has Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones, and Kirk Cousins. He has Swift, Dobbins, Clyde, and Zeke. Jefferson, Chase, Metcalf, Gabe Davis, and Renfro, and Kyle Pitts.
Those receivers.
He's got a glaring need at quarterback, but a really good team otherwise.
I would go running back.
Yeah, you're not taking a quarterback just because you need one.
Not unless you want to make your problems worse.
Yeah.
You got to try to trade this pick and maybe even a first next year for a really good quarterback and go win the damn league. Like, you've got Swift, Dobbins, Clyde, Elliott, Jefferson, Chase, DK, Pitts. Find a way to get some help at quarterback and go win the league.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, good idea. And by the way, we're going to end on a YouTube comment. Greg Harrell says, The Last Man on Earth was great. Thank you, Greg.
How would anybody know if he's the last man on Earth? Who's filming it?
There's there are a few other people who sprout up throughout the season. Okay, that's it for today's show and for the week. We'll talk to you on Monday with a special surprise guest. You won't know until the show starts, maybe. For Dave and Heath, I'm Adam, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Happy Mother's Day as well, and we'll see you later.